Please welcome Iris Kirsch.
Peace. So it's second period on Monday morning, and we're working on a project around a novel, and a couple of students have their phones out. Well, they're not supposed to have their phones out, but it's not totally shocking that teenagers are taking their phones out, so I'm like, guys, put the phones away. But they keep coming out, and more the phones are getting passed around. And I'm like, okay, so what's happening? Show me what's happening on the phones, because the kids look scared. And the first thing I see is a post that says that white supremacists are planning on coming and shooting up schools in Baltimore City. And so I call the principal. What is going on? We need to protect these children. What's happening? He says he just got off the phone with the police commissioner. Don't worry, it's under control. So we start talking about text messages and social media and how a message can come to you from a trusted sender but not have originated from a trusted place. And then they start showing me some other messages that are going around that day, including one that says that gang members have formed a truce to kill police, and another that says that there's going to be a purge at Mondawmin at 4 p.m. So the children are frightened. They're very frightened. They don't want anything to do with this. They don't know where it's coming from. Even students who might run towards certain kinds of trouble are not saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna go there. They were calling their parents, can you come and pick me up? A lot of kids leave early. By last period, it's almost empty because kids have tried to get away from this situation. I find out at the end of the day when I look at my computer that the news has been declaring that it's riot day, that there are going to be riots. In fact, people are harshly criticizing the mayor of Baltimore and the governor of Maryland for not having declared a state of emergency yet, but nothing has happened yet, except that there's a media frenzy. So I can see that things are kind of in the works, that there's some sort of setup going on. Some of my friends who don't have day jobs went over to Mondawmin to see what would happen. They saw these posts on social media. They went to bear witness. And one woman, Kate Drabinsky, is a professor of gender studies at UMBC, and she writes a blog called What I Saw Riding My Bike Around Today. And she wrote a blog post of her eyewitness, and I made copies to give to the students when we came back to school, and I had some copies left, so I put them on the table next to the canned goods. They're on a yellow or orange sheet of paper. Feel free to grab one. It's very interestingly written. What she and others described was seeing that Mondawmin is a transit hub. A lot of teenagers from all over the city take the buses there and then transfer to another bus to get home. They were allowed to take the buses there. All the buses went to Mondawmin. When they got there, the children were ushered off the buses and the buses were directed to leave. So you've suddenly got hundreds of teenagers who are scared and angry and confused, stuck, and then there's all these riot cops and they're antagonizing. One person I know said they saw the riot cops push the children this way and then turn around, get to the other side of them, and push them this way, just for no reason, just to antagonize them. So at some point, the children start doing the logical thing if you were a human being under attack, and they start trying to defend themselves. And we've seen the videos of the cops throwing rocks back at them. But the thing that you would expect police to do if children are attacking them is arrest those children, right? We know, I've been teaching in Baltimore City for 10 years, they don't mind locking kids up. I've seen kids get arrested for sitting at a bus stop. Kids get arrested for walking down the street. Kids get arrested for leaving school to get something to eat because the school lunch is disgusting. So we know that they don't have any particular qualms with locking children up in this town, but they don't. They antagonize the children, and then they push them into the neighborhood where more riot cops and, more importantly, news cameras are waiting. And what happens over the course at Camden Yards and other places over the course of that week or two, everything was pushed to happen in front of news cameras so that the story would be perpetrated, the lie would be perpetrated around the country, and people could have seen it with their own eyes. So then they do declare martial law. They enact the Maryland Emergency Management System, which is the legal way that they can enact a police state or martial law. It's similar to FEMA. And they declare a curfew. So I, of course, every night go out after curfew because what are they going to do to a 34-year-old white lady? And I drive around and I look at what I'm seeing. And I live on Greenmount. There's always police on Greenmount. So many police all over the place. But it's crickets. There's no cops out. And even starting on that Monday night, this spate of murders started. And that has been described again and again and again in the media as black on black crime, and yet they have no suspects. So how can you tell me that the only thing that you know about a suspect is that they're black? So so that's they were trying to say that the police were pulled or stopped going out to police neighborhoods because they were upset about the judgment against the officers, but yet I can tell you that they had stopped doing their job a long time ago, if they were ever really doing it in the first place. But yes, their job is to protect property. And they stopped doing it. They stopped doing it for some reason that we can't know. So I go to sleep, I wake up, I go down to Red Emma's because school is closed because, you know, when you have a police state, you definitely don't want like a safe place for children to be and get food to eat. You definitely want them to be confused about where to go. So a lot of kids in Baltimore rely on the school lunches, nasty as they are. Red Emma's decided to make free lunch for any children who wanted to come. So I get on my phone and I'm calling parents from this year, from last year, from 4 years ago. Anybody I've got in my phone, are you okay? Are your children okay? We have teachers and food here. Do you want your kids to come here and get some homework help and some lunch? Nobody wants to go out. Everybody is scared and they're bunkering down. So Red Emma's became like a funnel. People who don't feel comfortable driving to Sandtown could bring donations to Red Emma's, and we would get the donations to people who really needed it. Somebody there who had spoken to my class was like, look at this video that I found. Isn't this your student? And it's a video from a local news channel of gang members speaking, saying that no, we did not form a truce to fight against the police. We're out here trying to fix the communities. And oh yeah, that kid's in my creative writing class. So I realized that there's two different narratives happening. There's what's being shown on television, and then there's what people are actually seeing. And I realize I'm in this space that people are coming and going from. I'm going to set up by the door of Red Emma's and just ask everybody who comes in the door, what did you see? Where were you and what did you see? And this is the most alarming thing. I would ask people, where were you and what did you see? And they would say, oh, I saw this car on fire. I saw this house on fire. I saw this store getting looted. And I'd say, oh, where were you? And they would describe to me where the fire had happened or where the looting had happened. And I'd say, okay, and where were you standing when you watched this? And it would come out that they were in their living room watching it on television. People didn't know what was happening in their own city. They were completely convinced that the news was portraying accurately what was happening outside of their own homes. And just all in all, the officers who killed Freddie Gray obviously had no respect for Black life, or that wouldn't have happened. That was like a disregard. That was like hitting a cat by mistake. You know, it was just like, oh, whoops. Like it shows a really, really deep and insidious disregard for Black life. But those officers are not the sting team that brutally murdered Tyrone West and Anthony Anderson and dozens of other people who are still out on the streets. Those officers are not being prosecuted. That actual psychopathic murderous gang is still being paid by our tax dollars. So was that just like a release valve? Did somebody say, oh, you know what, Baltimore might actually explode, so we need to have a controlled way for people to let off some steam and get angry at the police and get some results without actually, I don't know, but I smell a rat.
Amen.